Good morning, all. I welcome you all on the behalf of StudyIQ IAS English. My name is Pritesh Mathurkar. I welcome you all to this exemplary journey where we are focusing on the analysis of newspaper entitled the Hindu Analysis Zone. So I extend my warmest regards to everyone, those who are watching me now since day one, and also to those who are joining me for the first time today. I hope that these sessions will have a great utilitarian value in your preparation and that you will fare with the best amount of marks in prelims as well as mains. I'm always adamant since day one, guys, that analysis of Hindu is now very important. Why? Because the civil services examination is an evolving examination. Okay, it is not static. Each year you will have questions which are more dynamic, which are more analytical, and mind you guys, they will also be from a critical angle too. Rather, there I will say that now roughly 40 to 60% questions do demand critical analysis. Why? Because you being the future civil servants of India, it is needed from your end to do what? To understand what is lacking, to improvise it, and then move ahead with the bigger steps. So that is what UPS is demanding from each and every one of you guys. Hence, I told you that analysis will not only cover your prelims, it will not only cover your mains, but it will also cover your interview preparation too. Because it will help you in forming an informed opinion. It will help you in shaping your character and your personality, which will ultimately translate into you being one of the best civil servants that India can produce. So, using these lectures, I tend to achieve roughly 30 to 40% marks, or rather 30 to 40 marks in prelims, and roughly 100 to 300 marks in mains. And if essay comes in our purview, then again it can jump to 500. Good morning, Jagriti. Good morning, Anup. Good morning, Stuti. I hope you all are doing fine. Okay, so this is how I tend to move ahead in you helping scoring good marks. Okay, and please make sure, guys, you get this straight, that this analysis is not only from the analytical perspective. I have opened up the Pandora's box for you all the day before yesterday. This analysis will also teach you answer writing. This analysis will also help you in improving your vocabulary. Okay, so the multi-pronged approach that you and me will follow in these sessions, wherein you and me, step by step, we will improve upon our answer writing skills, we will improve upon our analytical skills, and we will improve upon your vocabulary too. Okay, so we will follow a multi-pronged approach, basically multilateral diplomacy kind of thing between you and me. But in the end, both you and me should flourish together. Me in producing some of the best civil servants of India, and you as my students, as my preferred aspirants, you all should score very good All India ranks. That is my ultimate goal for each and every one of you. Okay, so the typical classes, I do normally share the PDFs on a group. I will tell you the details of the group. In any class, I discuss the present day Hindus' most relevant articles, but those articles are discussed from utilitarian perspective. If I don't find that any of the articles are important, so I don't utilize or I don't venture into that articles from your examination centric perspective. So we'll be discussing only those articles, guys, which I feel are important and which you should also first do on your part. So before coming to this session, I expect that each and every one of you have also gone through today's Hindu and you have just marked up the articles which you feel are important. That is how, guys, you and me both move forward. Okay, so let's begin our today's session. Let me just quickly introduce myself again. Good morning, Jasmita. This being your first day, so I don't know how the sessions will go on for you, but I hope that I will make you comfortable the moment we start discussing. So please refer to my previous sessions and please refer to the previous classes as to how we do the discourse, but you will be pretty comfortable. Okay, so just let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Pritesh Mathurkar. I will be your primary faculty for analyzing the Hindu newspaper, and in this analysis, I expect that each and every one of you will work upon the content which I am showcasing on the board. And for you all to work on the content. The same content which you will see on the digital board, it will be supplied to you freely and directly the moment the lecture ends. And for that you need to join a Telegram channel called as HAZ. It is called as the Hindu Analysis Zone. Okay, for joining this channel, you can just do a global Telegram search at the Hindu Analysis Zone. It will give you this channel. And I'm again reiterating, guys, you need to make it special. The special how you will make is will be from your angle. Okay, special in the sense that you have to basically start liking, start loving this. So if you want to love someone, if you want to express your love, you have to make that person feel special. Yeah, good morning, Yogesh. Good morning, Nandiri. So you have to make that person or that living being feel special, and that is what you need to do. This you need to add a special in front of this channel, the Hindu Analysis Zone, where you and me both work upon the content part. Okay, so let's begin today's discussion. Let's start the discussion of today's articles. In each day, I do tend to give you a severity score of the articles. Each day, I tend to give you how important the articles are, both from prelims as well as from the mains perspective. So after this, after today's discussion, yeah, some of you are saying that we should have a discussion session. So we will also have a discussion session today. Don't worry. You are free to ask me any doubts that you have. This being a live session, so we will here also do the doubt session today and here itself. So guys, in each lecture, I tend to give you a severity score. I tend to paint a picture as to how important the articles are from prelims perspective as well as from mains perspective. So today's articles carry a severity score between 4 to 6, but again one article, the explainer article in the text and context page, severity score 100. Okay, so I have basically multiplied the severity score by 10 for that article, especially because that article is going to be of paramount significance for you understanding the left-wing extremism. And again, that article has brought a big smile on my face today. Why? Because finally the theory which I was advocating since day one has finally come true. So those of you who are following me since day one and those of you who watch my sessions from the beginning, so again my theory is now grounded with the full might that yes, if any article is important, it will come first in the headline page, then it will go into the editorial page, then it will come in the op-ed page, and finally if the article or if the news is so goddamn important, it will finally come as the most significant explainer in the text and context page. So today my theory has been proved right. So I'm having a big smile on my face with regards to two articles. Okay, so let's begin the discussion of the first article that we have today. I told you we discussed a small article with regards to the European Union imposing a carbon tax, imposing a carbon cess on India, the very small article which we did roughly 1 week back. So this article is basically continuing of that same article. So again guys, my words have come true that if news is important, you will get an editorial on that. So again, now this news is so goddamn important. Today you are having the first lead side editorial in Hindu. Okay. So let's begin with the discussion of first article. So the first article is called as Green Crosshairs. Okay, it's basically an article with regards to trade wars. Okay, and this is a repeat issue. What do you mean by trade war, guys? Now, just imagine two countries A and B are trading with each other. Now, a country A is imposing some tariffs on country B for those goods in which the country A is having the dominance. So let's say if country A is manufacturing wheat and if country B is exporting wheat to country A, then country A will start imposing tariffs on the wheat exports of countries B. So now what country B will do? It will start imposing retaliatory tariffs on country A. So this is basically a very crude definition of trade war, where you start imposing retaliatory tariffs, where you start imposing deliberate tariffs on certain goods exports so as to show your dominance. So this article basically, or this headline news, is basically the very callous attitude of European Union. It's basically European Union just exerting its global dominance on a country like India. Guys, with regards to climate change, all of you know that historically we have not been responsible for global warming. Okay, it is countries like European Union, the 28 countries of EU, the countries of North America who are the most significant polluters of our environment. Okay, the carbon footprint of a average man of USA, an average woman of European Union is way more than the average carbon footprint of you and me. So historically they have been the most significant polluters of the earth's environment, but today, just to exert their global dominance, they do what? They tend to impose certain cess, they tend to impose certain tax. That yes, now India is moving from a third world country to a developing country to a developed country, so now let's curb the dominance of India. So it's basically a fake trade war which is fought for exerting geopolitical dominance. So this headline news should be treated from this perspective too. Okay, you shouldn't treat this headline only from the trade wars perspective, but from an ethical perspective too. That whether whatever the European Union is doing is ethical or not. Okay, you are the historical polluters of the environment. Your carbon footprint is way ahead that of an average Indian, and yet you do something like this. So guys, this is not done. Okay, so what's the issue? Starting this October, European Union proposes to introduce a framework for levying carbon tax on imports of products that rely on non-green or suboptimally sustainable process where carbon emissions are deemed to not have been adequately priced. This carbon border adjustment mechanism (CBAM) carbon border adjustment mechanism will begin with import monitoring mechanism and culminate in levy of duties as determined from January 2026. So now what do you mean by this? What do you mean by carbon border adjustment mechanism? So now let's say if India is exporting iron and steel, okay, if India is exporting engineering goods to European Unions, you all know guys that the industries in India are now transitioning from conventional processes to greening of their manufacturing processes. We are still in the transitioning phase. Still majority of the MSME industry in India has not yet gone green. They are in the transitioning process, and the transitioning process requires some time. Okay, historically, the Industrial Revolution of the Western Europe has dominated the world for more than 150 years. None of their technologies were green. But now, just to exert their global dominance, European Union is now trying to impose certain kind of cess on the exports of such goods from India, where if the manufacturing process is not adhering to certain carbon emission norms, where the manufacturing process, dare I say, is not green, so you will have to pay heavy cess, you will have to pay heavy tariffs. So this mechanism which European Union is advocating, it is called as carbon border adjustment mechanism. So for now on, since October till January 2026, you will have a monitoring mechanism where the European Union will monitor which exports coming from which of the countries like India are not carbon neutral or they are carbon emitting. So then the cess will be levied on that products. Okay, so guys, this is not at all done. Okay, this poses a significant threat to some of the biggest exports to trading bloc, including iron ore and steel, with carbon levies estimated to range from 19.8% to staggering 52.7%. So basically the European Union has gone mad. Okay, if they're imposing a levy of around 50%, so can we really export to such a country or such a union where we are having literary tariffs of more than 50%? No, this is all just to assert geopolitical significance that no, India now needs to do something. See guys, there is a very common debate in climate change. It is called as common but differentiated responsibility and historical responsibility. Ideally, what should be the case? The historical polluters, the countries or the blocks which have historically emitted more carbon emissions, because of which you and me are all witnessing climate change, they should take the whim of technological advancements, of funding for green technologies. But what is happening basically? They are advocating for common but differentiated responsibility, that no, now India is emerging from a third world country to a developing country to a developed country. So now India should take charge. I'm not saying that India should not take charge, but the word common but differentiated responsibility. Differentiated means what? That a country which has transitioning from a third world country to a developed country, that country should have a lesser responsibility, a lesser role in doing the technological advancements, in greening of their technologies as compared to the developed world. Why? Because they have funds, because they are so much advanced that already you have green technologies over there. So rather they should support India, not impose tariffs on India. So using TOT, transfer of technology, they should at least give us the technological skills so that Indian industries can actually transition in a better way and in a swift manner, so that our exports also become carbon neutral. But instead of doing this, instead of supporting countries like India, they impose tariffs. So this is again a trade war, a very ethical issue. You all know the difference. Recently you had the coronation of King Charles III, all the debates, all the controversies. So it's basically a game of asserting the power. Who is more powerful, you or me? Okay. Prop trade officials were more assertive and terminal tracking this risk as one of the top items on government's agenda, with several options being explored. Okay. Now, I told you that you need to remember certain lines, you need to remember certain quotes from newspaper, and you have to write down in your diary. So this is one of the first quote, or dare I say one of the first lines, which I want you to remember exactly the way it is written on the board. Okay. It is critical that center reacts with greater alacrity to what may be considered by some as a sophisticated trade barrier doused in greenwashing optics proposed by EU. You have to remember these words, guys. I'm again reiterating. It is critical that the center reacts with greater alacrity to what may be considered by some as sophisticated trade barrier. Sophisticated means what, guys? It's a trade barrier, but the name is so fancy. The mechanism is so damn fancy that it is basically a evil face in disguise. So you have wore a makeup, but as soon as you are removing the makeup, you are having a evil face. Okay, so basically a face mask which is eluding the true character of European Union. Okay. Sophisticated trade barrier doused in greenwashing optics. So you are doing what? You are basically greenwashing, that everything should be green, green, green. Okay, how come it is going to be green, guys? Okay, proposed by EU. Last year, about a third of India's iron, steel, and aluminium exports, for instance, were shipped to EU members. Engineering products, the largest export growth driver in recent years, will be impacted too. So if you consider the India's export of iron and steel, about one third was given to Europe, and European Union is trying to levy how much of cess? Roughly more than 50%. So just imagine, will the exports from India be accountable, or will the exports from India will be profitable now? No. Okay. So you need to understand, guys, the European Union needs to understand that the transition requires some time. If you are imposing such hefty cess on Indian exports, you need to understand that our industry is now in the, not in the beginning phase, not in the amateur phase, but the later stages of amateur phases. Now we are slowly transitioning from matured amateur phase to matured phase in terms of technological advancements, in terms of deployment of green technologies in India. So the transitioning will need some time, even more so for smaller businesses, to move away from the legacy carbon heavy technologies such as blast furnaces for steel making. So you all know that in steel industries you have blast furnaces, and blast furnaces are not carbon neutral, they are very carbon intensive. So this will require certain time. Okay. So European Union says, European Union believes that it flags the incompatibility with the UN's climate changing framework, which moots common but differentiated responsibilities for developed and developing nations. So European Union is basically advocating what? European Union is basically saying that, sir, madam, India, you have certain responsibilities. So you should adhere to the United Nations climate framework under UNFCCC, and you should adhere to the CBDR principle, common but differentiated responsibility. But guys, if you are putting every responsibility on us, how come it can be a differentiated responsibility? Okay. So, a threat of retaliatory tariffs on EU imports is also being weighed, even as plans are afoot to quantify the various carbon taxes levied in India. So, India is also considering for a retaliatory tariff on EU. India must play that the part to hilt while at the helm of the G20 presidency this year and galvanize other nations to take on EU's carbon tax framework. So you all know India is the presidency chair of G20. So India can take help of that forum. India can basically use that forum to galvanize its position, to basically solidify its position and take helm of other countries for going against such basically trade stopping kind of barriers. If European Union imposes such tariff barriers on Indian exports, trade will basically come to a halt. So India should take its position as the G20 presidency chair to galvanize its position. This championing need not evolve around its own concerns, but far worse implications the CBDM entails for the poor countries, many of whom are more heavily reliant on mineral resources than India does. So just imagine guys, India, we are now transitioning to a developing economy. We are now transitioning from developing economy to a developed economy. Okay, we are now in the top 5 of the economies of the world. Now just imagine if European Union imposes such kind of carbon adjusting or carbon border mechanism adjustment on the African countries. What will happen? So India should use platforms like G20, like BRICS, okay, to advocate its position. So guys, this is one of the first articles today which I felt is important and a continuing issue of what is being happening with European Union. Remember, with European Union, we don't have yet a bilateral investment treaty. Neither do we have FTA, neither we have free trade agreement. Okay, because European Union is very notorious for such kind of activities. If you pick up the history with regards to the trade between India and EU, okay, this bloc has always been imposing some of the trade barriers on us. So you need to understand this issue holistically. So I hope that I did justice to this issue and you got the issue in your brain imbibed. Okay. So after the class, please summarize the issue properly and keep in your mind historical responsibility and CBDR. And that India shouldn't be in a position where the world is flexing its geopolitical dominance on us. Rather, India should use its present stance. India should use its multi-pronged strategy to counter such kind of initiatives by the global West. Okay, let's move ahead. Now, the next article which I'm discussing with you all, the best article yet with regards to the left-wing extremism affected areas, and supposedly you won't have any better article than this in the future. Okay, so we already discussed one side editorial, we already discussed one op-ed yesterday only, wherein we discussed what is wrong from the governmental perspective, what is wrong from the policing perspective, what is wrong from the perception management. So now guys, we have seen what is actually happening. We are seeing the lack of regulations. We are seeing what is wrong from the ethical perspective. Now we are going into the depths of the issue. So every time you have news that people have been killed, army people have been killed, and the killing device or because of which maximum death happens, that device is IED, improvised explosive device. Okay, so basically, if you want to stop such kind of attacks, if you want to prevent such attacks in the future, you need to have certain standard operating protocols. It is called as SOP, standard operating procedures or standard operating protocols. No article as of today has covered the SOPs which are required for handling such kind of situations so comprehensively, so holistically as this article. Okay. So please utilize this article in your mains perspective, in your opinion forming, and you can have direct questions in mains. So you can have one simple question, okay, highlight some of the issues presently in the left-wing extremism affected areas. What should be the standard operating protocols? Are the standard operating protocols being adhered to? Suggest some improvements in the SOPs so that future attacks do not happen, so that the future attacks can be halted, so that the loss of lives can be completely stopped. So you can have a direct question in mains like this. So this is the first article, dare I say, the only article you can have this year with regards to SOPs. So we are not considering the legislation part, we are not considering the ethical part, we are not considering the kind of part where you have lack of governance or lack of any other oversight mechanism, but we are considering what actually needs to be done on the ground. So you need to understand this article from ground reality. Up till now, everything we said was by some paper, was by some research, was by some report, but now for the first time I will take you on the ground. I will take you to these affected areas and we will see what difficulties actually our armed forces face and how we need to evolve beyond the standard operating procedures to involve even more aspects to improve the standard operating procedures. It's just like this, guys. Each day I'm improving your standard operating procedures. Each day I'm going into the depths of article and explaining you how you all should improve. So the same thing we will do today. Okay, so I hope those who are watching me, you are all getting the words that I'm speaking, and let's begin the discussion of this article. Okay, minimizing the threat from the IEDs. This is an explainer article in today's text and context page. Okay, what are improvised explosive devices, potent tools in the hands of militants? So why do you have such kind of devices in the hands of militants? What can be done beyond the standard operating procedures to take on the terrorists in Kashmir or Maoist in central India? So this is one step ahead, guys. Okay, we are now moving ahead from the standard operating procedures to improvise those procedures so that the loss of lives can be halted, so that the arduous difficulties which everyone faces in these areas can be curtailed. Okay, so let's move ahead with the discussion. Okay, first of all, you need to understand what is the ground problem, what is the ground reality, what is the most potent dilemma from the terrorist perspective, from the Maoist perspective, as well as from the security personnel's perspective. Okay, so the first line itself is very damn important. The quintessential dilemma for security forces is that they are dealing with an enemy who is faceless. Okay, you don't know. Okay, so I have covered my face like this, you are not able to see my face. So that is the enemy that you are fighting, who is faceless, unidentifiable, and hidden among the people. So the terrorist, the Maoist, can you identify them in the crowd? No. So they are faceless, they are unidentifiable, they are basically hidden among the crowd. Wedded to the upholding the law of land and protecting its people, security personnel open fire only in self-defense and not on apprehension. So, do security forces open fire on the people? No, they only do open fire. Why? To protect themselves. It's basically self-defense. Okay. Militants, whether they are Lashkar-e-Taiba in Kashmir or Maoist in central India, have the first mover advantage. You have to remember this term. Which advantage do the militants have? They have the first mover advantage. Why? Because it is after when they make the move, then the security personnel come into the picture. Why? Because security persons will not open fire or they will not engage unless and until there is certain activity which has gone forward. So it's a very famous dialogue that the terrorists have to be lucky only once, whereas the security forces have to be lucky every time. So why? Because the terrorists have the first mover advantage. On triggering a landmine or IED on a mobile army vehicle, or open busting fire with AK-47 or a static CRPF sentry post. So you have to do what? If I am a Maoist, if I am a terrorist, I have to do what? I have to just take AK-47 in my hand, I have to sit in a vehicle, I have to go to the military post, and I have to just open fire. Whereas security forces, they need to do what? They need to first manage the attack, they need to delete the threats, they need to negate the threats, they need to kill the terrorist. After they have killed the terrorist, they have to cordon off the area, they have to do search and rescue, they have to do so many things. So this is the main difference between the operating procedures of the terrorist versus the arduous nature of the security persons. Okay. In all such scenarios, particularly in landmine IED ambushes, the reaction or the response time available for what is called immediate action or counter ambush drill is few seconds, and that too if few of the security personnel are lucky enough to survive the IED ambush. So now just imagine that you are moving and certainly you have a big explosion. So your reaction time is very less. Why? Because as soon as you have explosion, the terrorist or the Maoists, they start open firing on you. So you need to have very quick reaction time, very quick reaction response. And just imagine that you are moving in a battalion of 10. In an explosion, 9 of them have been killed and only you are the sole surviving police officer. What you have to do? Now you have to kill roughly 10 to 15 Maoists, roughly 10 to 15 terrorists. So now the responsibility falls in your bare hands. Okay. So hence the SOPs are needed. Hence all standard operating systems and procedures, technological measures, etc. are directed towards identification and detection of IEDs and to avoid being caught in them. So the standard operating procedures say what? That you should first detect the IEDs. Okay, if you don't detect these IEDs, your reaction time is very less. The reaction time window becomes very less because you suffer heavy casualties, and because of this the Maoists gain increased traction. Okay, so you need to have proper SOPs, they need to be adhered to properly so that the reaction time improves, so that your counter attack improves. Okay, so now we will discuss that how the errors can be minimized. Okay, how we can basically move ahead with the standard operating procedures. So I will be discussing 3 to 4 things in this. The first thing in which the errors can be minimized, it with regards to the travel by vehicle. So should you travel by vehicle in such areas? What should be your time of travel? In what way you should travel, and what can be improved upon? So let us discuss upon that. The first thing that must be kept in mind is to avoid travel by vehicle. The safest mode of travel is often on foot in a region where LWE is active. Studies show that over 60% of the casualties in the Maoist terrorists are because of vehicles ambushed in landmines, as also seen in the recent Chhattisgarh incident. So the 60% of the casualties which are suffered in such accidents are why? Because of the vehicles being ambushed, the vehicles being exploded by the IEDs. So you need to curtail this. You need to understand that travel by vehicle is not the safest way of patrolling. Routine operations like area dominations, cordon and search, long range patrolling and ambush cum patrolling should not be done by vehicles only. So you need to understand all of these operations should not be reliant only on the vehicle transport. You need to remember these operations, guys. What are these operations? Area domination, cordon and search. So you are cordoning off the area and you are searching. Long range patrolling. So you are going for long range, basically walk in the forest to patrol the areas, and ambush cum patrolling. Okay. If the vehicle travel is so absolutely essential, the onward and return journeys should never be done by the same route, nor undertaken during the daytime. So if you have to move from one place to another in such areas and vehicular travel is mandatory, so the route which you move ahead and the route by which you return back shouldn't be the same. And preferably you should prefer which time? Night time. Why night time? Because it's very difficult to spot the vehicle in the night time. And Maoists, they don't trigger the IDs in the night time. Why? Because you can also have civilian casualties. And you all know Maoists, if they start killing people, they will lose their trust, they will lose their confidence, they will lose their affection. So Maoists will not do something like this in the night times. A little known fact is that Maoists, to avoid the risk of killing civilian casualties, neither trigger IEDs during night time nor use anti-personnel pressure induced mines. The exact timing of triggering IEDs is also during the night time. So if I am a terrorist, if I am a Maoist, and if I want to detonate a vehicle, and if I want to detonate IED just when the vehicle comes above it, and during the night time, it will be very hard to spot the vehicle. So you need to prefer travel by night time. So the first SOP that I discussed it with regards to the vehicle travel, how the vehicle travel should be, in which time you should travel, and how you should travel. Okay, the second SOP. Okay, second SOP is with regards to camouflage. Camouflage basically, now all of you know the army vehicles are either green in color or they are camouflaged with the environment. And the Maoists and the terrorists know that the camouflaged vehicle, whenever it is coming, it is going to be of army personnel or it is going to be of the CRPF personnel. So spotting such vehicles becomes very easy. So you should use what? Instead of moving in a camouflaged vehicle, you should start moving in a civilian transport vehicle so that you are not spotted easily. So this is another improvement in the SOP. Stealth, camouflage and concealment are integral to anti-terrorist operations. Olive green vehicles of the army and light green vehicles of the CRPF are easily identified from a distance. Okay. The olive green vehicles of army and the light green vehicles of the CRPF are easily identified from a distance, giving adequate time and opportunity to the terrorists to organize an IED ambush. Okay, so the terrorists know that if such vehicle is approaching, that vehicle is going to be of course of army or CRPF. So it gives them a breather. It gives them an open window of planning the attack. If the vehicle travel is absolutely essential, security forces are expected to take civilian or state transport corporation buses. So you should move ahead. You should move ahead in your thinking. You should move ahead in your planning. Instead of using the army vehicles, you should start using civilian transport. Okay. Now, what about the protective gear in the vehicles? So if I'm taking a vehicle which is not at all made for such ambush, it cannot sustain the explosion, neither does it have any weapons mounted on it. No, that shouldn't be done. So this SOP is with regards to the vehicular technology. It is with regards to your weaponry, your arsenal. Okay. Security forces working in such areas should be equipped with appropriate protective gear such as blast resistant clothing. The clothing, if I'm wearing this shirt, okay, this shirt, and if I'm moving in the left wing extremism areas, this shirt should have what? Blast resistant properties. Helmets and eye protection. Their vehicles also should be equipped with V-shaped armored plated hull. So V-shaped armored plated hull is like this. So if this is the vehicle's bonnet like this, so you should have a V-shaped armored hull in the forward so that if any ambush happens, the vehicle can just flow through. Okay. Blast resistant technology and proper sandbagging to minimize the damage in the event of explosion. Okay. And it should also have weapons and should have a 360-degree observation deck. So on the vehicle, you should have a machine gun mounted and you should have a 360-degree observation deck. So these are some of the SOPs or standard operating procedures with regards to the development of tactical gear, the developments of such gear which can minimize the impact of such attacks. Okay. Also, security forces should always travel in a convoy of minimum 2 to 3 vehicles, maintaining a distance of at least 40 to 50 meters in between. Okay, so you should also see that your convoy is not limited to only one vehicle. You are traveling in a convoy of at least 2 to 3 vehicles with a minimum distance maintained of around 40 to 50 meters. Why so? So if you are having 3 vehicles, 1, 2 and 3, and if they are well spaced, and if you have an attack on one vehicle in the front, the vehicles from the back can easily catch up and negate the attack. Just imagine that all the three vehicles are moving close by, and if you have an attack, so there is high chance that all three vehicles can get affected. So you should travel in at least 2 to 3 convoy vehicles, and these vehicles, they need to do what? They need to be well separated, so that once attack happens on the front vehicle, the vehicles from the behind can catch up. Okay. And now, what should be done? How can a region be made safe for travel? Okay. So rigorous and regular implementation of various detection methods such as metal detectors, ground penetrating radar, and trained sniffer dogs to locate and clear landmines and IDs is essential. Road opening parties play an important role in detection of the ambushes. So you need to have sniper dogs, you need to have metal detectors, you need to have ground penetrating radar. So this SOP is with regards to the technological deployment. Technological deployment of what? Of the instruments which can detect such explosives. Okay. The last thing, okay, is with regards to area cordoning. Okay. Based on the above inputs, areas known or suspected to contain landmines or IDs can be mapped and contingency plan prepared for them. This includes establishing state routes, setting up checkpoints, creating evacuation plans, part of both preventive and mitigating measures. So you should have SOPs with regards to cordoning of the area. The area should be mapped, contingency plan prepared for them. This includes establishing safe routes. So which route is safe to travel? Setting up checkpoints. You should establish checkpoints in between the routes and creating evacuation plans. You need to have evacuation plans. So if you are traveling through a tunnel, you have a certain evacuation plan. Just besides the tunnel, you do have evacuation tunnels too. The tunnels are not that big, but you can evacuate from these tunnels. So you need to do this first. So this is with regards to the safety of travel. This is with regards to making the area safe for travel. So the SOPs for safety of the travel. Now, the last SOP is with regards to the input of intelligence agency. Okay, how the intelligence agency should improvise, because almost more than 70 to 80% of such attacks are because of what? Are because of failed intelligence input or botched intelligence input. Those of you who are watching me, I have Aditi, Yogesh, I have Nandini, okay, Stuti, Anup. Okay, please listen to this very properly, and you can comment me whether you have got this concept properly or not, or I will again re-explain you the concept. Okay, so what is failed intelligence input and what is botched intelligence input? Okay, failed intelligence input means what? That you got an input, you went to the area, but there was nothing in that area. You, let's say I'm a army personnel and I've got input that somewhere over there I'm having a militant being spotted. So I got this input, I verified the input from 2 or 3 people and then went, and there was no militant over there. So it becomes a false input. Okay, it becomes a intelligence input which is not at all true. Whereas what is botched intelligence input? And mind you, majority of the attacks happen because of botched intelligence input. So now, if I'm having an informer, that informer is saying, sir, madam, here you have one militant, you can go over there, you can catch the militant and you can come back. But in what way the input was botched? Information was not provided to me on the actual scale. In actuality, there was not one militant, there was not two militant, there were roughly 50 militants over there. So somebody deliberately botched the input so that whenever the army personnel will come, they will launch a heavy sabotage on the army personnel. So the Maoist will do what? The Maoist will work with the intelligence input provider. They will botch the input. They will give you fake information so that your attack becomes even more bigger. So false intelligence input versus botched intelligence input. So I hope that this concept is clear to you all. Free to comment. Otherwise, I will explain this concept again. So intelligence input should be very grounded, should be very real, and it should not be false, it should not be botched. Okay. Locals usually do not divulge information for more money alone. So if you are going towards a local people that please give us input, we'll give you money. No, they don't do this. Winning of hearts and minds is neither easy nor quick. Relations have to be cultivated and goodwill generated among the local population on a long-term basis beyond and above the transactional levels. This requires patience, commitment, empathy, and integrity. It will require what? Patience, commitment, empathy, and integrity on the part of security forces, which is sometimes lacking. So guys, I'm bringing in ethical dimension to this discussion. Okay. So those of you who are now watching me live, those have been consistent with me. You and me have now developed a relationship. You and me now have developed a certain level of trust, a certain level of commitment with regards to one another. What is this trust? What is this commitment? Trust that yes, I will cover the current affairs holistically. So that is your trust in me. What is my commitment? That I am ready every day at 9 a.m. with the complete analysis done, and I'm trying to explain you all these concepts on a very basic level so that they get imbibed in your brain directly. So that is how I am winning your hearts and you are winning my hearts too. And that is how your and my relationship is evolving. And just imagine guys, this is completely virtual relationship. You are not present over here, neither I am present in front of you. So how is this happening? Is this process a one-day process? No, it will take some time. You need to have some patience. You need to have some commitment. You need to establish the trust. Then only you can say that yes, now the locals are siding with us and providing the information. And again, I will say alienation. You shouldn't alienate the locals. You should gain their trust and then move ahead. Okay. And last part, what can be learned from the explosion? Okay. Diligent scientific investigation establishes linkages, meticulous collection and marshalling of evidence, framing of charge sheets followed by speedy trials. So once you have got the evidence, once you have got the data, once you have caught the persons involved in such activities, the trial should be very speedy so that it can be used as a threat for curtailing future attacks. If you don't file charge sheets, if you don't give punishments to the people caught in such activities, no, they will not, it will not act as a deterrent, it will not act as a threat perception, but you need to do this. Okay, now what can be done from the regulation side and from the legislation side? So we don't need to go into details of this. I will just summarize this in 2 sentences. From regulation side guys, what India needs to do or what society needs to do in general, you should take help of local NGOs, you should take help of the local civilian participation, and you should also engage on a national level and international level. So India again can use platforms like G20 presidency, BRICS, okay, Asian platforms. So for improving its image, for working with international organizations, you can have international organization like UNESCO, like United Nations Food Program, so that you can have good nutritious food being available to these people. These are all tribal people guys. They are devoid of even basic rights. So you can make sure that they are getting their basic rights, they are getting good water to drink, they are getting good food to eat, they are getting good shelter to sleep. So food, water, shelter. Food, clothing, shelter, the 3 basic necessities of life, you can work upon that from regulatory perspective. From legislation perspective, it is mandatory that you include the highest technology in the sense biosensors, the sensors which can detect chemicals, and using this technology, you can basically thwart such attacks. Last line of this article is very important. It is high time that a overreaching agency is created under the Ministry of Home Affairs to coordinate the efforts of both Government of India and state governments, and that provide legislative, technological and procedural support to the law enforcement agencies. So you need to do what? You need to have a bigger overreaching agency which sees all of this, which sees whether the SOPs are being adhered to, which sees whether the technological deployments are happening, which sees whether the outreach of the armed forces with the people is in a good ethical manner or not. And lastly, whether are we getting the help or whether the world is on our side. So this is very important line guys. I'm again reiterating, it is high time that a overreaching agency is created under the Ministry of Home Affairs to coordinate the efforts of both Government of India and state governments and to provide legislative, technological and procedural support to law enforcement agencies. So you need to have one big overreaching agency which can help you all to achieve the standard operating procedures and improvise them further. Okay. So guys, this was one of the most eye-opening article, the best article yet you can have with regards to the SOPs of the left-wing extremism areas. Please utilize this article in your mains. Please utilize this article to supplement your answers as to how you can reform the implementation, the working of the armed forces, what you can do from regulatory perspective, from legislative perspective to gain the trust of the people, and basically how to curtail left-wing extremism in India. So you can have direct mains application. Please make sure any question on left-wing extremism, suggestions, challenges, what should be the future way, you can quote this line directly. Okay, so I hope this article is clear to you all. One of the biggest explainer yet, but the gravity was such that I had to give so much time to this article. Okay, so this one article will suffice you, and with yesterday's op-ed it will suffice your entire preparation of left-wing extremism affected areas, the challenges and the SOPs part. Okay, so now let's move ahead. The second last article of today, it's basically a headline news, guys. Okay, so basically now the Arab trains will carry Indian goods to Israeli port. Okay, so there is an Israeli port called as Hafia. Okay, so the Arab train networks in future would be carrying Indian goods to Israeli port of Haifa, said Israel Foreign Minister El Cohen in New Delhi on Tuesday. Okay, addressing the India-Israel Business Forum organized by the Confederation of the Indian Transport Industry, Cohen announced support for increasing the number of Indian employees in Israel and urged for early conclusion of FTA between New Delhi and Tel Aviv. So this is with regards to the free movement of goods between India and West Asia. So we are basically doing what? We are moving into the West. We are moving from East to West. So we are opening up new markets for India. So you can consider this as a headline article for foray into the West. So our vision is that India, Israel, Gulf countries and India is the gate from east to the west. So we'll open up a gate from east to west. The trade that will come from India will go to some of the Arab port and from there by train till Hafia port in Israel and from there to markets in Europe. So if I'm opening up you the map like as to how we will move into the world part or how we will foray. So just assume the maps. Let us make the full use of the interactive panel that you have so that you get an even bigger picture. So I'm opening up the maps for you all. Okay, so let's move to Saudi Arabia. Okay, so this is Israel. Okay, and you can see on the board, this is the port city of Haifa. Okay, so this is the port city of Haifa, if you can see on the board. And from the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, so this is Arabia, the ports, the goods will now come towards Israel like this. Okay, either they can go through Jordan or they can go through UAE, the Gulf Egypt, and can enter through Israel. It will go to Haifa. From Haifa, it will be diverted towards the Europe. So basically, you are doing what? You are moving from west to east. So ideally, sorry, my bad, you are moving from where? You are moving from east to west. Okay, so you will be moving from India to the west. So a trade route from India to the Arabian Peninsula, from Arabian Peninsula to Israel, and from Israel towards West Asia like this. So we will move from east towards west. Okay, so we will be opening our floodgates from India towards west. Okay, I hope this is a headline article. This is clear to you all. So now the last article of today is not that important, severity score of only 1 to 2, but I thought that this article is very important for understanding whatever is happening in the West Asia. So for this guys, I will be utilizing a map. Okay, I'm divulging for this article exclusively so that you get to know the exact issue. For this article, I will be using a map of West Asia. So just 5 to 10 minutes of your time for you all to understand what is happening in the geopolitics of West Asia. But my information will be nothing outside this article. Don't worry. My information will be nothing outside this article. I'm not a faculty which will cringe in as much information as possible. So after the explanation of this article on the map, if you read this PDF which I'll be posting on the group, you will be pretty comfortable. So I'm using the map for the first time today in the discussions part. So let's see that too. Okay. So I'm using the map of West Asia for you all. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So guys, here you have Syria. So this is the map of West Asia. Here you have the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. Okay. And here you have a country called as Syria. Now, what happened in the year 2011? What happened basically in the year 2011 is that you had massive civilian unrest in the complete Arabian Peninsula, wherein the people revolted against the governments and the governments utilized very heavy forces, very brute forces to curb the civilian movements. So the similar thing happened in Syria. Okay, the president of Syria, his name is Mr. Assad. Okay, Mr. Assad. Okay, and when the civilian unrest broke in Syria in the year 2011, Assad basically utilized chemical weapons on its civilians. So, the president of Syria basically went against the United Nations conventions. He utilized biological warfare to curb the civilian unrest. So, because of this, Syria was basically left out by the Arab League. What do you mean by Arab League? Arab League is the association of all the Arabian Peninsula countries and the Northern African countries. So all the North Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, they have one league called as the Arab League. Arab League was formed late first after World War II in the year 1945. But in 2011, all the countries forfeited Syria. Why? Because Assad utilized not nuclear, my bad, chemical weapons against the people of its own country. Okay. So after that, what happened, guys? Saudi Arabia, here you have Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia basically partnered with some of the other countries and they started supporting the civilian unrest. They started supporting what? The civilian unrest. They started supporting those groups or those factions which were fighting against the forces of President Assad. So what happened basically? Because of this, you had direct involvement of Saudi Arabia, you had direct involvement of some of the other countries in the civilian war of Syria. And because of this, what happened? Mr. Assad or Syria diverted towards Iran, it diverted towards Russia to seek help. So basically, Iran supported Mr. Assad, Russia supported Mr. Assad. Why Iran supported? Because the majority of the problem in West Asia is twofold. Number first, you have minority ruling majority. So if a country is having dominant Sunni population, it is ruled by Shia rule. If a country is having dominant Shia population, it is ruled by Sunni minority. So similar thing is happening in Syria. The dominant population over here is Sunni population, but Mr. Assad or the dominant government is basically Shia government. So you have zero lack of accountability, you have zero lack of transparency within the working of the government and its implementation on the ground. So basically what is happening in Manipur as of now, okay, the intense tribal unrest. Why? Because they feel that the majority of the people of the Methi community will go against us. So same thing happened in Syria too. So Mr. Assad basically got the support of Russia. Why he got the support of Russia? Because Russia wanted to have access to Mediterranean Sea, whereas Iran supported Syria again because of some of the religious reasons and it being a closer ally to Russia, because Iran and Russia again are very close allies. Iran, Russia and China, they basically tend to counter the Western hemisphere. Iran, you all know, is in crosshairs with USA with regards to nuclear deployment. So this all happened after year 2011. So if I take you to present day, what is happening in present day? Mr. Assad is now controlling more than 90% of Syria's landmass. Okay, you have very small pockets where you have dominance of other forces. So in the northern Syria, you have dominance by Kurds. Okay, in the southern Syrian border, you have dominance of USA. Okay, also in the northern part, you have one or two bases of USA. Rest all of the Syria is now being dominated by President Assad forces. So whatever rebellion forces you had in this area, they all now have been crushed with the help of Russia and Iran. So now the geopolitics has changed. Now the Arabian Peninsula or the Arab countries are feeling that no, Mr. Assad has now gained power and he can again utilize his power for malicious purposes. And you all know, guys, that once civil war breaks out, it is what results into, it results into migration. So migrants from Syria, refugees from Syria are already flooding Turkey, they are already flooding the countries of Saudi Arabia, Iraq, they are flooding towards the Russia, they are even moving towards Europe. Okay, so none of the countries want this. Even Saudi Arabia does not want immigrants. Why? Because now Saudi Arabia has opened up the economy. Initially, Saudi Arabia was dependent on oil only, but now as the oil sector is going down because of green technologies, Saudi Arabia has to open up its economy. So how can Saudi Arabia get more migrants and open up its economy? So no one wants the migrants anymore. The game is basically all about economy. If you are having the civilian war resulting into economic crisis, no country will want that. Okay, so it is basically the same thing. Every country in the world will want war. I'm again reiterating, mark my words very carefully, those who are watching me. Every country in the world will want war, but no country will bear the consequences of war. Every country in India will want war, but no country in the world will bear its consequences. The same thing is happening now. Okay, in Syria again, every country wanted war. Why? Because he used chemical weapons. So every country used this as the launch bed of its test weapons. Russia came, Iran came, and now once you are having the economic fallout of the war, no country is wanting the war. So now again the Arab League is trying to do what? Arab League is now again basically making Syria again the member of it. So it is readmitting Syria to the Arab League. So history does repeat itself, first as tragedy, then as farce. So the changing geopolitics of the West Asia, this article with regards to this, I painted a good picture in front of you as to what has happened and what can be the future. Future again, if Syria becomes a part of the Arab League, then again China will strengthen its positions. Why? Because China has recently broken deal between Iraq and Saudi Arabia. Okay, so China will now again move towards Syria, and it's a very dire situation then for India, because if entire West Asia comes with China, our positions geopolitically as a soft diplomacy power will be threatened. So this can be the future scope of India. Okay, so please make sure that you understand this article from this perspective. If you just give a read to that article, it will be done and dusted. Okay, so this summarizes the today's article, guys. I hope that each and every one of you got what I tried to say. If you are having any difficulties, please reach out to me now, or you can contact me on Telegram. I'm again reiterating, my name is Pritesh Mathurkar. You can reach out to me on a Telegram channel called as HAZ, Hindu Analysis Zone. For joining this channel, you can just do a global search at the Hindu Analysis Zone. And if you want to contact me, you can basically reach out to me on Telegram by just doing a global search of my name, Pritesh Mathurkar, wherein I will be solving all your difficulties. So anyone, I'm waiting for a moment. Anybody is having any difficulty, you are free to ask me. I hope these sessions are enlightening to you and that will move ahead with greater vigor. Okay. So on the behalf of StudyIQ IAS English, I wish to extend my warmest regards to everyone. I hope that everyone is enjoying this journey with me and that you are all comfortable with my approach and that you and me are moving ahead with same pace and we will slowly increase our pace of the article coverage. Please guys, keep on working hard and smart because that is the need of civil services examination. Okay, all the best everyone. See you all tomorrow, same time, 9 a.m. Thank you.